she is building towards some big moment and passing the torch to somebody.
Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. Bonjour, you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. My name is TK Trinidad, and today we have an amazing show, and of course, nothing but amazing guests. He's an international pro wrestling host and founder of Busted Open on SiriusXM, which is now 24/7. Please welcome Dave LaGreca. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, of course. I appreciate you for coming on, and big congratulations, 24/7. That's a big deal. So first heard that news.
Oh, this is something that we've been working on for a long time. Busted Open's been on the air for almost 17 years. But the popularity of the show and the popularity of pro wrestling, this is something we've been working towards and working really hard for. But still, it was a great moment. We launched in July, and the numbers are fantastic, and I'm super excited for the future.
Okay, so now we have a fan question. So the fan question is, what is the one word that always makes you laugh, no matter what?
I'm guessing he's a fan of the show.
He's a fan of the show, your show, my show.
Yeah, but I know, because there's a certain word that whenever somebody says it, it makes me laugh.
What word is that?
Boobies.
Yeah, you could thank your co-host Mark for that question.
Oh, Mark asked? Of course he did. That sounds like a Mark Henry question. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hit him up and I was like, okay, so Dave's coming on. Any any tips, anything? He's like, ask, and he started smiling because obviously Mark. He's like, yeah, ask him what the one word is, and I was like, okay, you got it.
Mark's the best. I mean, Mark, he's great. So it doesn't surprise me that would be the question he would have you ask.
I mean, it made me laugh, and you knew what word it was, so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So you had one show, it was a masterclass where you're talking about the Mount Rushmore. So my question to you, as far as Mount Rushmore, who is your Mount Rushmore for women's wrestling?
Charlotte Flair. Sasha Banks.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Wendy Richter.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
Because of how she changed the landscape. And I gotta put and maybe it's because I'm biased, but I don't care. Mickie James.
Yeah, my Mickie James was like my honorable mention, but I definitely had her in like my. It's kind of hard, but yeah, those are on brand. I like it.
I would love to put Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus deserves to be there, but I think if I'm putting Charlotte in, I almost feel like I have to put Sasha Banks in because they were attached to the hip for so long.
Right.
And I'm a fan of what she's doing now as Mercedes Moné. And I put Wendy Richter in just because when Wendy Richter was on top, and a lot of younger fans don't know this, she was almost as popular and as big as Hulk Hogan. Like, people don't remember that, and for whatever reason, the WWE doesn't remind you of that. But if you go back, Wendy Richter was huge, and I don't think she gets enough recognition, so I'm going to put her on my Mount Rushmore.
Okay. No, I like it. And I mean, kind of going to Mercedes Moné with the fact that she has 12 belts now, right? And, you just said it. She's doing a lot for women's wrestling. How do you think this is all going to play out? Because it's just kind of like, she can't have it forever. I mean, it is possible she can have it forever, but it wouldn't make sense wrestling wise. So how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, I mean, first I want to say I think Mercedes is the women's wrestler of the year in 2025. I don't think there's anybody else that comes close. And I feel like, and I honestly don't know how you feel about it, but she's been getting a lot of hate from wrestling fans because of the amount of belts she has. But you got to look past, just what's happening right now, and you got to look into the future. she is building towards some big moment and passing the torch to somebody. And I feel
Mhm.
like I think she should win everything. I think she should win the tag titles. I think she should win the AEW Women's Championship. I think she should have every single title, and she should
Okay.
run and have those titles for a while. And then when that person steps up, and I don't even know who that person would be. I have my guess or my
Mhm.
thought of who I think it should be, but I feel like let her run women's wrestling, let her have every single title, let her be at the top of the mountain, and then there's going to be the eventual fall from that mountain. But it's got to be the perfect right person to be able to dethrone her. So,
Well, that's the question, like, with AEW. So she's like, for instance, she's the current interim champion for the ROH TV,
mhm.
and Red just got she's able to wrestle now. So do you think that Mercedes is gonna beat Red, or like is it gonna play out where that's gonna be that? Because she's had a loss. Do
Yeah,
you
she
think she's just
has.
gonna collect that belt? Yeah.
Yeah, which again I don't get. Like I don't understand
Mhm.
why they would have her lose. I would have her just continue to win, grab every title. So yes, I think she should win that title as well. And I feel like and I feel like she should run and
Mhm.
reign on top because as much as she's dominated and people are complaining about how she's beating everybody, she still doesn't have the AEW Women's Championship.
Right.
So, and she's facing Chris Statlander at Full Gear, and I think she should be Chris Statlander, and I think she should be your new AEW Women's Champion.
Where does that, so you have essentially Athena, which is 1,000+ days as the ROH champion, and
Mhm.
she's run through the locker room, and it's kind of one of those things where, I know if it's her way, she'll have it forever, but there doesn't seem like anybody who's gonna be able to take it off her. And so it almost feels like, she's been pigeonholed. Like, she's the champ, but it's like, where does she go from here? And I think that's kind of my worry with Mercedes. It's like, okay, she can have the belts everywhere else, and she's giving all these other promotions, recognition, all this other stuff. But within the AEW universe, what happens when she's run through the whole women's locker room?
Well, I think there's two things or two ways you can go. One, you mentioned Athena. Like if she captures the AEW Women Tag Team titles, it's going
Mhm.
to be with Athena. So you could set something up where, that team breaks apart and it's Athena who dethrones Mercedes. I think Athena
Okay.
quietly has been one of the best wrestlers, male or female, and hasn't gotten any of the recognition because she's on the Ring of Honor brand. So I think it could be Athena.
Okay. That,
And the
yeah, I
other
mean, I like that.
my other idea, and this is somebody who's beaten Mercedes and would be the ultimate underdog, and I think would be a fan favorite, and the fans would get behind her 100%. They already are, but in a story with Mercedes, I think it would be even bigger and better because again, she has beaten her, and that's
Mhm.
Willow.
Yeah. Well, and deserving of it too. That would be a
Yeah,
good one.
yep.
Okay,
So
I
I mean,
like it.
those are my two ideas who I think could potentially eventually dethrone Mercedes.
Okay. And now going from Mercedes to Jade, she just became champion. I don't want to say it's a long time coming. I think we all knew when she got signed to WWE it was eventually going to happen. So what do you want to see her reign like?
Well, I feel like the WWE's kind of dropped the ball on Jade up until Saturday night's main event. I think if you really look at it, I feel AEW did a much better job of booking Jade than the WWE did. Like, look at Jade. She is the total package. I would have had
Mhm.
her just run through the women's roster. Well, now they can do that. I
Right.
think I don't understand why there's people, and again, that's why I kind of stay off Twitter. I'm not on Twitter nearly as much as I used to be because fans are
Mhm.
so toxic. But like, I think Jade is phenomenal. I
Yep.
think she's somebody that's like once in 15, 20 years, you get somebody
Mhm.
like Jade. Like, I feel like she's a badass. She's got a great look. She could be a baby face or she could be a heel. She could do either role. And I loved what I saw from her on Saturday, where she's holding up that title and that gash above her eye started to open and she started to bleed again. Like that vision of her, that image, I think is amazing. I love Jade, and I think eventually what I'd like to see is Jade work to a way of being what I think Jade would want, because I've had a couple opportunities to interview her. The match that she wants more than anything is Charlotte. And I feel if there's ever going to be a passing of the torch, it's not Tiffany Stratton, it's Jade Cargill. And I feel like Charlotte can do that for Jade eventually down the road. I like what Charlotte's doing now because she's out of the title picture, and
Right.
I like what she's doing with Alexa. But eventually I want to see Charlotte back, contending for a championship. And I think, to me, that's the fantasy matchup. A woman who's dominated for the last 7 to 8 years, and Jade, who I think is going to dominate for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of disagree with you a little bit as far as AEW and WWE. With AEW, it was like they were protecting her and she almost seemed too perfect. Like, they protected her where we didn't see, the emotions and all this other stuff. And now with this run for WWE, you kind of see, her partnership. You see her with Naomi, you see her with Bianca, and you kind of see her progression and also her being comfortable in her own skin as a wrestler. So
It's a great
now
point.
to this point is just like when she got it versus her being signed to WWE and they put it on her immediately, then everybody would have been like, okay, well, we know why. She looks like a superhero. She's deserving physically, but you saw her grow as a WWE superstar during this. And now this point is like, okay, I can get behind it.
And honestly, that's the only company that could do that is the WWE. Like, they just know how to create superstars and not wrestlers.
Yeah.
And I think Jade is I think Jade is a very good wrestler, but Jade is a superstar. And the only company that could really do that the right way is the WWE.
Yeah. So now this brings me to, Naomi. So she's pregnant. She's gonna be out for a while. I am a Naomi fan. How do you think she's gonna, if you were to write it, how do you think she would come back to the E?
I first of all, I think when she comes back, she's going to come. Gosh, it's hard because I loved what she did. She did as a heel. First of all, I got to go back to the work she did in TNA. And this is where the WWE had Naomi for so long and didn't really use her the right way. TNA did. TNA booked her as a champion, as a top star in that women's division. And I think that's really where she came into her own. It was a long time coming. But I got to credit TNA for what they did with Naomi. But I love her as a heel. But I think when she comes back, she's going to be the biggest baby face. Now, listen, she's talented enough that she could turn it and be a heel. I think that would be too tough to do. I think when Naomi comes back, the fans are just going to fall in love with her. They know who she is. They're going to miss her. And I think she's going to be like the biggest babyface. And maybe that's the way that they could go. Maybe you have Jade dominate as a champion, make her a long-term champion, and have Naomi come back, and it's Naomi and Jade. I mean, that's something that.
Yeah.
But do you agree? Do you agree because of the story? Because everybody knows she's stepping aside to give birth. Do you think like that she's going to be the biggest babyface when she comes back?
I've always been for Naomi being in some version of the bloodline. Do I hope for it to happen? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I like her run. This run, it felt like WWE actually got behind her as the heel. So I would say for her to come back as the heel, and then as she retiring any time soon, but I think she is kind of close to retirement. Like she's not starting her career. As she's progressing, going back, I would have her go back to babyface. But I would definitely want her to come back as a heel.
And you know what? And you could do that. She could go. That's what I'm saying. She could play either role. Like I feel like I just feel like that the fans for so long never got to see the Naomi that we've seen in the last year. And I feel like now it's like she was just hitting her stride and she was doing the best work of her entire career. So I just feel like the fans are going to really want her back. Like, let's just say she came back at like a Royal Rumble, right? I mean, the pop she would get would be insane. Now
Right.
she could turn it. You know, she's so good, she could turn it right away and get the fans to hate her. But I really feel like the fans are going to be starving for her, and that when she does come back, she's going to get a pop no matter what circumstance you put her in.
Well, I feel like when her turn was natural, because she, like you were saying, she was in WWE for so long. They dropped the ball on her on so many occasions. And it's also the frustration because now you're seeing the evolution of women's wrestling and you're seeing all these wrestlers essentially come and pass her. And that's not because of a lack of talent. That's the people making decisions in the back. And then also people who are buying merch, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was just a frustration thing. And this is the where we got her as a heel. So, and it's the same thing, you know, when she went to TNA, there was a lot of people who's like, oh, we're gonna watch TNA now. TNA's been around and they've had a
Yeah.
good product. In particular, they had a good women's product. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel I don't know. I feel like she should come back as a heel just because, you know, people weren't really they were saying they're rocking with her, but like, were you really rocking with her,
No,
you
it's
know,
true.
through the goods and bad?
It's the same thing, you know, when you're describing Naomi, it's kind of like the same thing with Natalya. Like
Mhm.
Natalya was been around for so long, and it's almost like it was bad timing because she came before that women's evolution in the WWE, that
Yep.
almost like they forget how good. I mean, if you look at pure skill as a professional wrestler, I don't think there's anybody that's better than Natalya, but they
Right.
haven't booked her the right. I mean, you know, some of the even skits they had her doing back, you know, 8 or 9 years ago were embarrassing. Like to
Mhm.
me, you know, and I hope they do. I hope now, like they recognize that and they use her the right way. You know, my fingers are crossed for that.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into women's wrestling as a whole, right? So we've gotten away from essentially booking, and it's no offense, booking like, you know, the models and the dancers, and now we're having people like the wrestling boom is really big. There's wrestling schools all over the place. People are going to wrestling schools. WWE is getting athletes from colleges. So the talent is there. The storyline, I feel, is not always there, not as much as the men. So, you know, what do you think? Like, what do you think needs to change? Do we need to get more women in the back? Do you need like what are is it going to eventually happen? What are your thoughts with that?
Well, a lot with what you just said. First, it kind of reminds me of the promo Kalani Jordan cut on NXT, and I'm a huge Kalani Jordan fan. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think she's going to be a major player on the main roster when they
Yep.
eventually bring her up to the main roster. But she said something in her promo, and she said about the fans, you know, all you care about are fat asses and catchphrases. Like, you know, what about like my journey and my story and my championship and how hard I worked to get there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
if you go back and listen to her promo from NXT, like there's a lot of truth to what Kalani Jordan was saying. Like there
Yeah.
should be more stories. Like I've always said, I've said this on Busted Open a million times. The WWE could get very lazy when it comes to the women's division. We saw it leading into WrestleMania last year. And what do
Mm-hmm.
we always see like when things come to a head? You know, half the women's roster in the ring pointing at each other and yelling. But
Yep.
right? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
usually how they set up like a big match, like a Royal Rumble or a War Games or like a big like championship match or something like that. But no, let's put the time in. Let's have stories because I've
Mm-hmm.
always I've always said that there's this preconceived notion that this younger generation of wrestling fans want everything fast and want everything quick. That's a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of BS. All you have to do is look at the Bloodline story and how long that story was and how
Yep.
invested the fans were. I think that's probably the greatest story in the history of wrestling.
Mhm.
and it was long, and nobody was complaining about it. They were invested in it. If you tell a good story, it doesn't matter how long it is, the
Mhm.
fans will be invested in it. So let's do that. Let's tell more of a story. Let's tell the journey. And the WWE could do that better than anybody. I loved what I saw when they have like those video packages telling the story of a Julia or a Stephanie Vicaire. Like, do
Yep.
that. Show that on Raw. Show that on a Monday Night Raw so that the fans can get more invested. And maybe your idea of having more of a female presence when it comes to writers and creatively and booking and decision making. I think that's important. And how big the women's division is right now, I think that's a no brainer. I think you need to do more of that. And
Yeah. Mhm.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, and I think the same thing for AEW. Like, I loved
Mhm.
what Tony Storm and Mariah May did. That was phenomenal, and it should have been the main event of the pay per
Yep.
view. And I think most fans would agree with that. Well, you saw that it worked. What do more of that? Tell more
Mhm.
of those stories that can lead to a major main event or a major pay per view match. Like, I feel like you need to do that across the board. I feel like AEW had that with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. Britt
Yeah.
Baker and Thunder Rosa had the match of the year. How do you not further that story? How do you not do more with that? And, now we barely see both of those women on TV. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's not just a WWE issue. I think it's a wrestling issue. I think you said something that's 100% right. If you look at one company that's done the most with their women's division and has highlighted it the most, and put more story into it, is probably TNA.
Yeah.
They probably
The
are the
knockout
company
division, yeah.
for the last 15 years that have
Mhm.
done more with their women's division.
Yeah. And that's like the bigger question because I don't know if you see the numbers as far as the analytics for Busted Open, but for WWT, when it started in 2017, we had way more men viewership. We still do. Shout out to you guys for watching, but I've also seen the increase of women watching as well, and I also seen the increase of women wrestling fans on social media. And I'm seeing more women at wrestling shows. Like before, you would go to a wrestling show and it was just like me and two other girls in the restroom, and the men's line would be like really long. Now you're seeing women there. So like, why not cater to the women as well, as far as not necessarily, we have women centric shows like Wow and Shine, etc., but at least putting some effort into the storyline. And I just don't know, like, why this, it always just seems to be missing the mark in it. It's very confusing.
I think when you look at the landscape for women's wrestling, it's probably as big as it's ever been, like you said.
Yep.
The fan base, the women's fan base, is growing larger and larger. And we've seen the women main event, WrestleMania. Um,
Hmm.
and I think we could probably do that again. Like, I feel like almost like you have 2 nights of WrestleMania, have one of those nights the main event be the women's championship match. Like, have
Yeah.
that represented, since you do have 2 nights and two main events to be able to do that. Um, I think it's definitely, I think for me, I'm probably the wrong person to ask it, because I've seen the worst of the worst when it comes to women's wrestling, like the way that they were treated, how
Hmm.
poor the storylines were, and you know, a lot of like what we saw, especially in the WWE in the early
Yeah, the bra and
2000s.
panty days. Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like, so, like, so sometimes you get caught up in like, yeah, it's so much better now, that you forget that, yeah, but it could be even better. So
Right.
like, I think we as fans have to stop, especially older fans like myself. We have to stop looking at what women's wrestling was 20, 25 years ago. That's in the past.
Hmm.
That's gone. That's ancient history. So I think we
Right.
need to be more focused on now and in the future, and stop comparing it to like, oh, it's so much better than it was here,
Yeah.
and I think that's how you can get that. I think I think that's a big reason why it keeps missing the mark is people keep comparing it to an era that's long gone. Let's focus
Yeah.
on now and in the future. And I think that can make a big step forward in that
Yeah.
direction.
I mean, they are. We're getting good stories, good storylines, like you were mentioning Tony Storm. So I guess maybe it's hopefully building. Eventually, we'll see what's going to happen with that. But the tag team division, across the board, it just always seems to I'm a firm believer that, you have some people, men or women, they come in and they want to be a solo act, and that's fine. But it's almost like there's certain people who should read the room, and it's like, hey, tag team is where it's at. This is where I can, really make a stamp and all this other stuff. And it's just like it's too many people just trying to be, solos. And I feel like with the women's tag team division across the board, I don't know if it's the women or the producers. It just always seems to miss the mark. Like we never really get. And of course, Alexa and Charlotte are doing a great job, but they're eventually going to break up. Like we all know this.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Is I think even with the men's division when it comes to tag teams, especially the WWE does a terrible job with their tag team division. Like even on both sides, on the men's side and the women's side, like I think you've seen too many times where they just throw two singles wrestlers together and they win matches and they beat established tag teams.
Right.
Um, I think AEW does a better job with their tag teams, and they're having this tournament for the women's tag team titles.
Hmm.
So we'll see what they're able to do with that. But tag team wrestling has almost become like a dying art in
Yep.
wrestling, and to me, it's like you could do so much more. Like like if there's talented wrestlers that aren't making a dent on the singles championships, let's put some of them together and let's create stories. I think
Yep.
one of my favorite things that have happened in the past 5 years is the Acclaimed. Like I
Hmm.
love
Yep.
the rise of the Acclaimed, but again, like what happened? Like they just like broke them up, and then they won the tag team titles, and then they lost, and then it became a 6-man tag, and then they broke. Like you had one of the biggest reasons why I felt like AEW was so hot was because of their tag team division and because of the Acclaimed, and I'm surprised that they got away from it so quickly.
As far as women,
Mhm.
either indie scene, we'll start with the indie scene. Who is the top woman that you are like you have your eyes on? You're like, eventually we're gonna be talking or saying her name.
Well, somebody that I feel like, somebody I want to give a shout out that's really been grinding on the Northeast wrestling scene for a while is Vicious
Mm.
Vicky.
Okay.
Vicky is like a mainstay here in New Jersey, and she's made appearances on TNA and AEW. Having watched her the last 5 years, I'm shocked that a major company hasn't signed her. Like I really feel like she's absolutely phenomenal, and I wish she would get a better look, and I wish somebody would give her a big opportunity because I think she's earned it, and I think she
Hmm.
would. I think she's somebody that people would buy tickets to see. Just not enough people know about her. So look into Vicious Vicky. I think she's phenomenal. And then somebody when I say grabs my attention, somebody that I buy a ticket to see
Hmm.
is Shotzi Blackheart. Like
Yeah.
I love Shotzi. I loved her on NXT. She went to the main roster and they didn't do anything with her on the main
Hmm.
roster. And then they brought her back to NXT, and then almost immediately she was let go. She was released.
Hmm.
I think they everybody talks about Matt Cardona, and rightfully so, what he's done since leaving the WWE and the career that he's made on the indie scene. I think Shotzi has done just as good of a job,
Yep.
making a second career for herself on the indie scene. The fact that like a major like WWE dropped the ball on her.
Hmm.
If I was AEW, I would have signed her immediately. Like
But
if
then
I'm
put her where
TNA,
though?
what's that?
Then put her where? It's like it's and that's at one point AEW, like whenever somebody was getting dropped, AEW picked them up, and then it's particularly with the women, it's like, okay, it's like collecting. Okay, well, we have these women now and we're excited that they're signed because, I don't want anybody not to have a job. But then it's like Soraya, Ruby Soho. It's like you have these women and it's like, well, what are you doing with them? And it's like you have way more women in the locker room eating catering, but you're not doing anything with them. And
I
that's kind
can't
of the,
I
frustrating
can't
part.
disagree. It's a great point by you, and I can't argue the point because it's 100% true. I think you could say that on the men's side, but definitely on the women's side. Like you've had so much talent that like has just been sitting on the shelf.
Mhm.
And like you're right about Ruby Soho. Like Ruby Soho, and obviously Ruby Soho stepped away to start a family. But before she did, they weren't using her at all. Like
Mhm.
and she came in with so much buzz and so hot. All right, Soraya had one bad promo. And I can't even fault her for the promo that she had, but it was probably just the wrong promo to cut as her
Mhm.
first promo. And then it's just like, okay. And that was it. Like they didn't really like, I mean, we should have seen Soraya and Mercedes go head to head. Like, how did that
Yes.
match not happen when both of those women were on the roster?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't understand it. So you make a great point. Like I'm always thinking of AEW, collect the paycheck, collect the money, but creatively, are they going to use you the right way? And history kind of shows that you're probably taking a big chance because you probably won't be. And that's a shame to
Mhm.
say. But to me, Shotzi's a star. And
Yeah.
either the WWE should be kicking themselves and saying, all right, we didn't see something in her, but look what she's done on her own. Let's bring her back or something. But
Yeah.
I would love her to get another opportunity. But like on the independent scene, those are two, like one that just hasn't gotten the opportunity and one that has
Mhm.
gotten the opportunity, but they didn't do enough with her.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing, with the independent scene now, money wise, especially something like Shotzi, because now you're a former WWE superstar. She doesn't need, again, not trying to, I want everybody to make money, but she can literally go indie show to indie show and people will pay to see her. So she's really, really good where she is if she doesn't get signed, because the last thing you want is for her to be signed somewhere and then they're not utilizing her, and now you're getting frustrated because you want to see her, and if they do use her, it's some terrible angle and then she disappears. So I
It's a
hope
good
she
point.
does. Yeah.
But I have ordered GCW shows just for Shotzi. So, in this day and age where you don't have a lot of superstars that are like that this person is the attraction, the fact that
Hmm.
you can do that on the independent scene, I think is great. And she's been able to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we're definitely producing more superstars now that we have more wrestling schools and with social media. Like you're seeing how other superstars are doing it, and now you're patterning off of them. Now you also have access to them as well. So there's a lot of information, floating out there. But as far as superstars, you're a superstar in your own right, podcast wise, and radio show wise. I shouldn't say podcast. What is your advice? Because when you started, there weren't a lot of wrestling podcasts or shows out there. Now there's call it like the pandemic boom. There's a bunch in the pandemic as well. What is your advice to somebody who's starting or who wants to start a wrestling podcast? How do you become successful?
Well, in my case, it was, wrestling still had that stigma on it, and it was just hard to grow the show. But thankfully, to Sirius XM, they realized how big it's become, and it's because how big pro wrestling is right now, especially the WWE.
Hmm.
Um, the advice I would give is, try to get a lot of interviews, try to get your name out there, gain the trust of the wrestler, let them know that how professional you are. I know you want to grab the gotcha question or grab that
Hmm.
headline, but if you're going to do that, do it in a professional way. Do it in a way that's not disrespectful or critical. I think that's important. I think, you know, you have to learn that trust and that relationship with the wrestlers, because they're the ones that are putting their bodies on the line every time they step into the ring. So you have to you know, you should always have that in the back of your mind whenever you're talking about a wrestler or you're doing an interview. The other thing is like, watch the products. Nowadays, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts that it's obviously they're not watching, they're just looking at clips online or clips on social media. And that only tells 5 seconds of the story, you know. And I'll use an example. John Cena and Cody Rhodes from SummerSlam, which I think was one of the matches of the year. It will be a candidate for me as match of the year. I don't think it would win it, but it's one of the best matches of the year. And I was surprised coming out of that. Like, people are focused on, you know, the guardrail spot. And it's just like, all right, that's 5 seconds of what was a fantastic match. Just saw it recently with Jey Uso and CM Punk. Everybody was talking about that neck breaker. Like, that, I thought that match was great. And I thought they told a wonderful story. It started slow, it built up, and I thought the last 3 minutes of that match was crazy good. But people are focused on one thing that happened in the match. Like, don't go for the low-hanging fruit. You know, watch it, study it. You can be critical, but also understand the whole scope of what's being told. You don't have to be negative to just get clicks. We're all wrestling fans here. Understand your audience. The people who are listening to you are wrestling fans. If you just want to hate on it and beat it down, what are we doing? So I think you could be critical, but be fair. And I think that's a big thing as well. Use your social media the right way. You know, make sure you tag your show and look at what's trending and talk about what's trending. Look at all the hot trending topics, like obviously Monday Night Raw. You know, post about Monday Night Raw, and then, you know, post your show and let people know how they can hear your show. Because if they like your opinion on social media, then they'll listen to your podcast. So I think those are big things. And another thing that I try to do on Busted Open is, if anybody wants to come on and promote their podcast, come on. We're all within the same community. We're not competing against each other. Let's help each other. So I think promoting other people's shows as well shows goodwill, and it also will help you when it comes time that you need your promotion for your show. So just remember that we're a pro wrestling community instead of fighting with other shows. And I've had shows come after me, and like, they're obviously trying to bait me. If you're trying to bait me, I'm not talking about your show on my air. Like, I am not going to tweet at you. I'm not going to get into a social media fight. I'm not going to get into a tug of war with you on the air. That's like poking the bear just so I name your podcast. I'm not playing your game. But if you're respectful and you want to be a part of this community the right way, I have absolutely no problem talking about your show. Like, I will, obviously we just did an interview together. I'm gonna promote this interview on Busted Open because we're all part of that same community. So just be mindful of that, because if you're burning a bridge, it's very, very hard to build that bridge back up again.
Yeah, I often say it's positivity, and it's wrestling. Like, we're not talking politics. We're not talking. It's wrestling. It's meant to be fun.
And that's another thing too. And that's another thing too. When you just mentioned politics, understand, you know, this is wrestling, and if you know, like, it's not politics. We don't have to pick a side and argue and fight constantly about it. Like, I always look at it this way, is that the world outside of our community doesn't understand it and is always trying to bring us down. So the last thing we should be doing is bringing each other down. Like, let the people who aren't wrestling fans, the people who aren't a part of our community, that's what they're trying to do. So, like, there's no reason that we need to do that at all. Like, take a page from politics. Like, our country right now is so divided, probably more divided than it's ever been in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be that way. We don't have to be that way at all. Like, it just frustrates me to no end that people pick a side and they die on that hill. You don't learn from anything unless you listen. Listening is learning. And I hope we could do more of that. And it starts within our own community.
Yeah, definitely agree. Last question before we get out of here. You've interviewed a lot of people. Who is the one person that like this is the person I want?
Well, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've been doing it for close to 17 years now. So I've been able to talk to, everybody that's on my list. The one thing that I first of all, growing up, my favorite wrestler was Ric Flair. So being able to interview Ric Flair was a big deal for me. The interaction I've had with The Rock.
Yeah, that was good.
But it's not just like, and I'm gonna read the note. I don't know if you saw the post he made after meeting with me, but he made a post on Instagram, and it meant a lot to me because it really kind of sums up what you and I are talking about. Because him and I were arguing back and forth about Cody and the pink robe, and he cut a promo on me. And I had the opportunity to meet him at the beginning of October, and I gave him that pink robe that I wore when I made that promo. And but he posted the video, and he said this, and I'm not saying this in regards to him saying it to me, but just about our community in general. He goes, he says, as crazy as our business is, pro wrestling will always be a very tight-knit community with our own secret language and fun, meaningful gestures. Dave LaGreca's infamous pink robe. This is a big deal. Thank you, brother. Keep killing it and give the boys my love. But what brought a tear to my eye was not the second half of that post, but it was the first half of the post. As crazy as our business is, pro wrestling will always be a very tight-knit community with our own secret language and fun, meaningful gestures. And emphasis on the word fun. Like, this is, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. Like, we watch wrestling for the fun of it. And I feel like we can argue, but as long as we have respect, I think the key word that I think has been lost is respect. Like, as long as you have respect for somebody, you can have an argument. You can have a heated discussion as long as the foundation of it is built on respect. And as long as you have that, I have hope. I have hope for our community. But I know that was kind of like a long-winded answer to your question, but I feel like we've gotten away from it. Like, it's almost like we want to knock everybody down. Like,
people click for negativity. People click for negativity, and that's what they're trying to. Instead, it's almost like selling your soul, doing the negativity so you can get all these clicks. Versus, like, I like wrestling. I want to talk about this. It's a positive aspect, not sending death threats to wrestlers over wrestling. It's always so strange to me when people get so invested that they're essentially saying bad things or talking about their like it's wrestling, and if you don't like it, you can just turn the channel. Like, it's like that simple.
Nobody's forcing you to watch it. Like, and I've gotten that too. I've gotten people telling me to F off or kill myself over an opinion about Cody Rhodes, or because I preferred a match from one company over another. Like, it's just I had an opinion about, and it was a show I was doing with Nick Nemeth, and Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay were having a match in Australia, and I said I thought that was a big mistake because you're going back as a heel. Kyle Fletcher is going to wrestle in Australia. He could get a babyface pop. So I was surprised that they were going to have their top babyface at that time, and Will Ospreay, go up against Kyle Fletcher in Australia. Now, like, it turns out that Will Ospreay got an amazing reaction and Kyle Fletcher got booed. All right, This is just my opinion
Right.
about what I thought could happen. And it turns out both Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher said on Busted Open that they kind of felt the same way. They weren't sure how the fans were going to react. But I got so much hate from the AEW fan base. Like, I was like, hello, I was looking out for Will Ospreay.
Right.
Who's your top? Like, I wasn't hating on Will Ospreay and I wasn't hating on Kyle Fletcher. I just didn't think it was the right decision to have that match in Australia.
Right.
It
An
was
opinion.
an opinion I had. And you know what? It was an opinion I had that was wrong. And I can admit when I was wrong. But the things that the AEW fans said to me based on that one opinion, and this is coming from somebody who has gone out of his way to promote AEW, especially early on when they first started. I was actually hurt by it. Like, I actually had to like stay off my phone for a few days just because of an opinion I had about a match. Like the stuff that was said, like, listen, if you want to say, Dave, I think you're wrong. Dave, that's a terrible take. That's awesome. But to use profanity and to come after my family, it was ridiculous. And I think people really need to understand that at the end of the day, this is a form of entertainment. That's all that it is. That's all that it is.
Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody who I make my living off of doing my show. But still, at the end of the day, it's a form of entertainment. Let's not take it so serious.
Yeah. On that note, that is perfect.
I know I bogarted your entire show. I'm sorry.
No, that was the perfect way to end. I appreciate you. I mean, I'm gonna shoot this out there. I'm sure everybody should be following you, but just in case, where can everybody find you? All that good stuff.
Okay, so thank you for that. You can follow me on social media at David LaGreca David LaGreca, the number one, at Busted Open Radio. Busted Open is now part of Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7. We have our own 24/7 channel on Sirius XM. So if you have Sirius XM, listen to us on channel 156, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Also, we have a YouTube page. We have all our interviews and segments up on YouTube. So subscribe to that. It's absolutely free. Also, we have two podcasts. We have the Busted Open podcast and the Masters Class. The Masters Class is with me, Bully Ray, Tommy Dreamer, and Mark Henry. So definitely check that out. And, be on the lookout. We have some big events that are happening at the end of this year and starting in 2026. So make sure you keep an eye out. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for coming out. I mean, I haven't had, oftentimes I'm always doing interviews. So it's nice to actually sit down and talk to somebody about women's wrestling and, all the opinions and all the thought process. So I appreciate you for having this conversation with me.
No, thank you for having me on. I'm honored. I was very upset that you've never asked me to do the show before. It took this long for it to happen, but I'm glad we're able to get it done. So thank you.
Honestly, I thought when Courtney, so I'll give you guys the backstory who's going to be watching this. Courtney, one of our hosts, Courtney Rice, our PR princess, she went to the Busted Open taping for CSX in New York. And obviously, so a lot of people know I work with Mark Henry, but I honestly just thought like you were too big for WWT. I like it was no shade. I was just kind of like, he wouldn't want to be on this show. Like we have a good community, but it's a very small community compared to the Busted Open community. So it's more like that.
All, you have to change that attitude. You asking for advice, change your attitude.
Okay.
Seriously, like you have something very unique and special, and it's good. It's quality. Like you are not less than anything. So, you got to start changing your attitude with that, please.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you. And I'm glad you and Courtney had that conversation because I immediately was like, oh, I know Dave follows us because I've seen you say things. And like, let me send a message. So I appreciate it so much for
that was a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a nudge. But I'm glad we finally got it done. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you guys. Thank you, Dave, for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. My name is TK Trinidad. You can follow me everywhere at TK Trinidad. Make sure you follow Women's Wrestling Talk on all social media platforms at www.talkpod.com. Until next time, thank you guys so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.